Well, it's more enjoyable than my average day. Reading philosophy, avoiding gang rape in the washrooms, though it's less of a problem these days. Maybe I'm losing my sex appeal.
Hmm. So the upcoming criteria for the next movie is a criterion you've always wanted to watch. And all right, so can you give me any hints here?
Oh, well, not only that I've always wanted to watch, but that you haven't seen.
Oh, that's true. True, true. Okay. Okay.
Yes. I actually completely forgot about the I've always wanted to watch part and was just a criterion we both had never seen. Um,
Oh well.
um,
So yeah, hint. Hint.
so let's see if I can give you a hint without giving it away. Um,
Well, usually all your hints lead to
okay.
me not knowing it, so let it hang
It
out there, brother.
was it was said to, not by, but said to Nick Cage.
Aha. All right, so knowing you, it's probably going to be one of his crazy action movies. So, Con Air?
That is actually a very good guess and pretty close to the
Oh,
same time period.
it has to be The Rock then.
Yes, it is Dwayne Johnson. You're correct.
You and I have unfinished business.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
The moment of heart rate feeling, spirit is something.
I think this just might be my masterpiece.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 15 of the Average Joe's Movie Clubcast. This is Justin.
And I'm Joey.
Tonight, we are finally looking back at that year. That year our friendship began in 2003 as we check out the true crime serial killer drama Monster, which landed Charlize Theron her Best Actress Oscar. Plus, we both revisit the love story between the man in black himself, Johnny Cash, and June Carter in the musical biopic Walk the Line from 2005.
And just as a heads up, we do discuss our full thoughts on these films, so if you have not seen a movie and you want to avoid spoilers, please skip ahead or go check them out and come back and see if you agree with us.
And if you want to be a part of the Movie Clubcast, please hit like and subscribe. We would love to hear from you. So, yeah, it's a nice kind of a long weekend here. President's Day coming up tomorrow, so a little bit of time to decompress. How are you doing?
I mean, I'm doing all right. I've been better. Kind of got this whole I'm on a very long weekend thing going on right now. Unfortunately, you know, working, found out that my new job, the owner of the company was skeezy, scumbag, if you were. So he and I did not agree on how to go about doing certain things, and he wanted me to do things that I thought were unethical, and he thinks that they are not, and so I no longer work there.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
on
now
a
you'll be
long
holding out for one of
vacation.
those upper management positions, right?
Oh yes, I'm actually holding out for a trust fund. So if someone wants to just give me a trust fund,
Perhaps an
bro,
inheritance.
hit me up. Yeah, an inheritance. You actually can go to our newfound Twitter page and there's a donate button. You can just donate it right through there. You can remain anonymous. Everything. It'll be a-okay.
So we actually saw each other for the first time in, what was it, 16 years? And we didn't even take a picture.
We didn't. We're bad at this. Like
Normally I'm good, but like I was tired and I like just got off of work and I had the kids to deal with, and you know, we were just rolling with the punches, and I mean, we enjoyed the short time we got.
yeah, I will say. And while the Mexican place that we went to was fantastic, the fajitas were great, all that, you just recently went to some like cool looking burger place. Why the fuck didn't we go there, bro? Why you hold out on me?
Bad Daddies, I don't know. I guess that should have dawned on me. Oops.
It's okay. You were trying to deal with like 3 kids and them running around and trying to play video games and show me everything, and so you know it was kind of a crazy day. Now that did only happen because of that crappy job I was just talking about. So I guess that was the good thing that came out of it, was I got to hang out with Justin. So
Yeah, and we were thinking we were gonna get more of those, and now we're cut off. Maybe you can just
I mean, hopefully
live here.
I'm gonna get a better job. I mean, maybe I would not necessarily be opposed. Maybe I can just find a job where I have, more weekends or more time I can just, go and do, and can afford to go and do.
Can't believe it's been a whole month since we did our last episode.
It really has been, hasn't it? I know I'd released I got old recorded Schlock Talk, and I've got a couple more I need to release. And I think you did that really long.
Yeah.
Probably felt like doing one of our podcasts, really long.
Pretty much.
I've always wanted to watch this.
Yeah, me and Jeff Light, we were talking about The Hunt, and fellow likes to talk movies quite a bit. So yeah, we had a good time on a 2-hour movie version of the movie Blitz.
Yeah, y'all, that was almost like two different episodes together. It was but it was very enjoyable. It was one of the better ones
Oh, cool.
that you've done, I think. It's just very long.
I was trying to be a little more self-conscious with like cutting people off, because I felt like when we're podcasting, like I've tried to like flip the switch in my head to where like avoid talking like forever. So, we have kind of decent length podcast instead of, extreme length. And I had noticed when I was interviewing these people, like I was kind of cutting them off at times, and so that was kind of making me uncomfortable. So, I just wanted to let it fly, and man, Jeff took advantage of that, and more power to him, because, yeah, he incited quite a bit of good movie talk, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, y'all, you had a good back and forth. I mean, it took a long time, like I said, but, you were asking these questions, and he's like, "Oh, I'm firing right back at you." So, I mean, I thought it worked itself out pretty well, so.
Yeah, makes for some interesting dialogue. Obviously, didn't want to expand as much as he did. But yeah, spring is in the air, which means, oh gosh, Nolan's gonna have baseball, Tanner's doing karate, Gan's doing soccer. We got scouts going on, so it is gonna be all hands on deck soon. So, gosh, and I'm already like crawling through movies right now as it is, so. I guess I shouldn't say that. I watched 2 movies in the last 24 hours, but it's been kind of a slow week. Any of my Letterboxd followers might have been like, "Hey, where's Justin?" It's because it took me way, way too long to watch this one thing, but I'll get into that in a moment. Anything else you want to touch on?
Oh, I just I'm going at a much slower pace this year than I came out of the gate last year, had like 20 something movies in January. And out here we're coming close to into February, and I haven't even hit 20 yet. It's just been slow going, and part of that was training in the new job, and I was going from home for like two weeks, and now it's just it just just hasn't happened at the same pace that it did last year. But hopefully it's gonna pick up soon, and I'll start cruising towards that magical number that I know you're waiting for ever so patiently.
Yes, I brought up the idea of actually watching 2001: A Space Odyssey with Joey, and maybe doing like a live commentary, because I'd love to hear like his instant like thoughts on it, and then me to be as explainy pants as he'll let me be as we go through that. So it'll be interesting when we get there. He's not looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, Carl is pretty adamant that he thinks I won't like that movie, and he's usually pretty spot on with that, about what I will and won't like. Which, to be fair, like he doesn't necessarily like it. He appreciates it and thinks it's fantastic, but he's just like, it's like 3 hours of fucking nothing. So,
No, it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes, and but it is a Kubrick film that's not black and white, so I guess you already take it down a notch going in.
I mean, look, Kubrick's better than some of the other directors you've tried to force feed me. So, I mean, I had actually already seen Kubrick movies. Yes, you tried to force feed me Mr. Lynch and Mr. Von Trier, and
to be fair, you had Mulholland Drive on your movie list. So,
to be fair, you're right, I did, and I didn't know what the fuck I was in for, like at all.
I think, we watched Blue Velvet, I think, before that. That's a good movie.
Prepare me for it. Yeah. No. They're both better than anything you made me watch by LVT, though, so there's that.
All right, let's get into it. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I could go the rest of my life without watching another one of his movies, and I would be A-OK USA.
That's not going to happen.
You think you're okay.
I have the power. All right, let's get into a little movie trivia. So, how many of this year's Best Picture nominees can you name? I believe there's 10. Let me pull up my list. And yeah, let's answer. Let's get Joey answering something he might not be so good at, because he doesn't care about such things.
It's not that I don't care. I just don't go out of my way to like keep up with it like you. Don't Look Up.
Yep.
Macbeth.
Oh, it's sadly not nominated.
West Side Story.
That is nominated. Good job. That's 2. Got 1,
Dune?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to go. Dune is on there. Yep.
We're running out of steam already, boys.
The new
the Last Duel.
Last Duel is not nominated. Although Ben Affleck got nominated for a Razzie, which had Twitter abuzz for that movie.
Yes, the Guillermo movie, but I can't tell you the name of it.
Nightmare Alley is nominated.
Yep. I mean, anything else would be a guess. Soho?
Nope. No Edgar Wright. Do you know what the new PTA movie's called?
Licorice Pizza.
Licorice Pizza is nominated. All right, that leaves us with 5. There's one that debut. Okay, you're not an HBO Max subscriber, so you might not know what's available there. Correct?
Yeah, currently, I mean, I was for a bit, but I'm not currently. Like, almost all my streaming services are cut off.
There's one that stars Will Smith. King Richard is nominated, and the last 4 are pretty difficult. So, any final? One's on Netflix and is done by Jane Campion. I'm not sure if that rings a bell or not. And what's
there's
his name?
Another Netflix one.
Benedict Cumberbatch is in this Western. That's nominated.
Whoa. Benedict Cumberbatch is in a Western.
He is.
Yeah, I don't know. Just tell me.
Okay, you got The Power of the Dog is what I was talking about there. Kenneth Branagh has done this movie called Belfast, which I don't know much about. There's this, I think this is a Japanese or Korean movie. There's no way for me to tell quickly off of this letterbox here, but there's a film called Drive My Car that's nominated that I hadn't heard of prior. And the last one is Coda, which has to do with, I think, child with deaf adults or something. So one of those disability movies. Yep, that's the Oscars this year. Okay, next question for you. How many Best Actress nominations has Charlize Theron been nominated for or received?
How many Best Actress noms has Charlize Theron had?
Yes.
Trying to think of her movies.
I'll give you a hint.
I don't know.
Atomic Blonde isn't. Oh, 3 is correct. Can you name any of them?
For Best Actress, so Monster, because she won for it. I'm gonna assume not Atomic Blonde. I'm gonna assume not the Netflix movie that she did that we watched a while back. The Devil's Advocate.
Was she in that?
Yes, not the
The Devil's Advocate.
That's the one with Keanu and
And Al Pacino.
And Al Pacino. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah, she is Keanu's wife.
Okay.
I have no clue, man.
All right. One's called North Country. That's about like the labor movement up in Minnesota. That came out in 2006, and then Bombshell from 2020. I think that has something to do with the blondes that work at Fox News. But you might do a little better with this next one. How many Best Actor noms has Joaquin gotten?
Straight Best Actor noms? 2.
Well, what 2 do you have?
Joker. And Walk the Line.
There's one more best actor nom in there.
Well, no, it's not Gladiator because he won for Best Supporting.
He was nominated for Best Supporting, so that's kind of like the little side one. Oh, I don't think you've seen this last one.
I thought he won for that, but okay. I'm gonna be 100% real. I have no clue.
The Master with Paul Thomas Anderson, his first PTA flick. So yeah, Gladiator, Walk the Line, The Master, and Joker. And finally nailed it for Joker. Need to rewatch that one. All right. How are you gonna stump me tonight?
So, what famous Los Angeles landmark is heavily featured in Rebel Without a Cause?
Is it the Hollywood sign?
It is not the Hollywood sign. If it helps as a hint, it was also in La La Land.
Is it that planetarium place?
Yes, the Griffith Observatory.
Oh, okay.
All right. Since we've been talking about Oscars, who is the only actor to receive an Oscar nomination for acting in a Lord of the Rings movie?
So they were nominated not for Lord of the Rings, but something else.
No. They were nominated for acting in Lord of the Rings. So
Really?
Not the technical aspect or anything. Yes. That is the way I took this question. I guess I should go and look it up to validate that.
I don't think there's any. Is it a trick question?
I don't believe that it is a trick question.
Actors and LOTR with Oscars.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking that up right now.
I mean, I guess Peter Jackson cameoed in the movie and he got Best Director. Does that count?
No, that's not. Um, like I took it as he was nominated because it says nominated for acting in Lord of the Rings. And of course, this wants to be wonky.
Below
Don't
is a
care about.
selection of major awards from Lord of the Rings films have won Oscars, 7 nominations. So, I mean, I'm seeing this thing about Elijah Wood, but I don't think he won. Why didn't any actors? What's your answer? And I'll do my research. Extra research.
It's Ian McKellen.
And which movie are you saying he won for?
It didn't. It just said Lord of the Rings in a Lord of the Rings movie.
Huh.
Two times. Best actor in a leading role, Fellowship of the Ring. Best actor in a supporting role, Return of the King. Nope, that's BAFTA. Even though I took it. There it is. Best actor in a supporting role, Fellowship of the Ring, 2002.
I got it pulled up too. Wow, there's a lot of categories for him. The Tony Awards, the Screen Actors Guild Awards, the BAFTA. Okay, Academy Awards. Okay, yeah, Fellowship of the Ring for supporting role. Okay, nominated. All right, touche. What else you got?
And then I had 4 questions, but I only put 3. So I'm going to actually go to no, I got rid of it. I deleted it. So we're just going to go with the one that I have typed out. Thought I had the other one still up where I could get to it. It would have just been more on theme than this one, but fine. What 1970 movie marked the feature debut of Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Is it the movie we watched? The Long Goodbye? He was in that movie.
Was he?
Or was he? Are you talking about Pumping Iron?
It's actually called Hercules in New York, according to the website that I was on.
Oh, maybe.
All right.
Okie doke.
So
let's get a little juiced and with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Here we go. All right. My 3 categories are: I finally finished it. Here we go again, but much quicker, and knocked me on my ass.
All right, so I've got Kylo and Widow, Swan Song, and Nostalgia City.
Ooh, I think I know what Kylo and Widow is. Do you want to tell me about Marriage Story?
Yes, I do. Man, I was a bit apprehensive because I'd only seen one Noah Baumbach movie, and which we
one?
did for the cast. Kicking and Screaming.
Oh, Kicking and Screaming, yeah, early one of his.
Yeah, and it was okay, but I wasn't like blown away with it. But I had heard so many good things about this one, and my friend Rosa, just raved about it. Now, to be fair, she's like obsessed with Adam Driver and Kylo especially, but Adam Driver. And so she raved about how good it was. And I like Adam Driver, and I think anybody who's listened to this podcast or knows me, I'm a big fan of Miss Scarlett Johansson. So we finally got around to giving it a shot, and it was great. I think the name is a little bit of a misnomer. Because there's really none of the marriage depicted to the point that you're at. It's a divorce story, but I guess it doesn't ring near as well. But you want to?
Yeah, that'd be a little depressing to go into, even though that's what it gives you.
I mean, the movie is great, and actually, we finished watching Monster earlier, and we watched it on Netflix, and it was starting to scroll stuff at the end, and it scrolled Marriage Story, and I was like, man, that movie was so good. Like, so good, but I don't know if I want to watch it again. I don't know if I'm ready to have my freaking heart ripped out of my chest again. Like that was just it was one of those movies, but it's highly fantastic and I definitely recommend it.
Yep. Concur
All
100%.
right. What knocked you on your ass, homie?
All right, so I started Boyhood, I think, on Tuesday. Watched a little bit. Was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is going to be this nearly 3 hour, coming of age, watching this kid slowly grow up movie. And the next 2 nights, I proceeded to watch about 30 more minutes. I mean, granted, I had like a long day at work while dealing with work stuff and kids, so I was pretty tired. Friday, watched big chunk, and then finally finished it yesterday. And man, finally, when the movie like really clicked in for me, was like, so the gimmick behind Boyhood is Richard Linklater shot this kid kind of growing up over the course of I think 12 years, and they checked in with him every few years to film a little bit more of the movie, so you actually see him grow up on camera within the story, and he shapes the story around that. And like the whole movie, you're thinking like, oh, I'm kind of relating to this kid Mason with like, what was the nerdy thing I went and did? Like Mason goes and like dresses up like Harry Potter and goes to like the midnight book release of Half-Blood Prince. So there's a little reference in there. Richard Linklater, he loves to talk about some like politics. So there's like stuff talking about like Iraq in there. But it wasn't until the end where like I started seeing Mason more as like my own son, to where like it really got like emotional. Like you see the snapshot of this kid growing up over the course of only nearly 3 hours, and a lot of it seems like a blur because it's just like minute details of his life. But I mean, in retrospect, that's kind of how things are. Whenever you look at your kid and you're like, oh my gosh, they were just a baby a few days ago and now they're all grown up. So I had kind of that experience with this film and wasn't expecting it, so it got me quite emotional.
So the premise of this movie is very interesting, but that's the one with the same person as Waking Life, right?
Yeah, but it's also the same guy who did like the Before trilogy. So I mean, while he has like kind of artsy stuff, like not everything he does is that. Like I wasn't a fan of Waking Life either, but this movie's great. So I mean, have you seen Dazed and Confused
Fair
yet?
enough. And I saw Dazed and Confused. I thought it was severely okay. Like I didn't.
I would agree with that.
I mean, and I mean, I think it's that thing is also it was made in the '90s, like nostalgia for '70s. And so if someone came out with a movie now and it was nostalgia for like the '90s or the early 2000s, it would probably hit me the way that movie hit people then. I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I think you'd enjoy the Before trilogy. So there's some elements of that in Boyhood. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because the Four
Linklater.
Trilogy is the one with Ethan Hawke, right? And it's like three different points in time in these people's relationships.
Yeah, he filmed each of those movies
Yeah, I
7
wanted to
years
see that.
apart and kind of advanced their relationship. All right. What's Nostalgia City for you?
Nostalgia City is from where you and I hung out for the first time in like 16 years, and we watched Batman 1989.
Yeah.
My God, that movie.
You, Joey. You're my number one guy.
So like, that's what the movie is. It's not perfect, but it's perfect. Like in every way, I remembered like every beat, everything that was happening. It was fantastic. I loved every single thing about it. Um, and if somehow you haven't seen Batman 1989 and you're just used to Nolan Batmans or Batfleck, then you definitely should go check out Michael Keaton, especially with the new Batman coming. And Keaton's '89 Batman is supposed to be in the Flash movie, so like it's a good time to like reintroduce yourself or introduce yourself because that movie is just chef's kiss. Also, Jack Nicholson, boy howdy, is great.
How long has it been since you've seen Batman Returns?
You know what? I couldn't tell you. I've seen Batman '89 probably more times than I can fathom. I have probably only seen Batman Returns once or twice, and it's probably been since I was young. So I do need to re-see that at some point.
I really, really enjoyed my rewatch of that one. So yeah, hopefully you'll like it as much as I did.
Yeah, I remembered you enjoying that one on the rewatch.
Hmm.
All right, so here we go again, but quicker.
Okay, so a few years ago, I had talked all about the experience of watching the 8 hour Santen Tango from Bellatar, which I went into detail about how very slow cinema, but also kind of funny in the fact that, it's so blatantly like long and repetitive and basically showing the worst possible life imaginable, all in cinema, black and white. So I watched his slightly shorter movie, The Turin Horse, which is in the 2 hour range. Still felt long because it's just composed of really, really, really long shots. But yeah, there's something about these misery pile movies that just kind of crack me up with just how like bleak they are. Like I don't, I'm still not sure if I'm supposed to be find parts of this thing funny because what the Turin Horse is about is they tell you this fable about like not Socrates, Nietzsche. He was in Turin and he saw this horse getting beat, and he went and comforted the horse, and then afterwards apparently he went like mute or dumb or something, and he was no longer Nietzsche after this very depressing moment of his life. So the movie kind of depicts that just in a slightly different way. I won't give away too much more, but yeah, these Bellatar movies. I'm looking forward to watching the other real famous one he did, Workmeister Harmonies. The guy's actually retired now. He's doing like film school in Europe. But yeah, I just find this director endlessly fascinating with how it's not even really a movie. It's like just this whole other thing, Bellatar's films. So that's all I got.
All right, interesting.
Okay, so we just have Swan Song left for you.
Yes, the Swan Song. So the Swan Song for Daniel Craig
Oh,
in
yeah.
No Time to Die. So I enjoyed this movie. I don't think it was bad, but I think that much like Spectre, its problem is that it's living in the shadow of both Skyfall and Casino Royale. And maybe that's not fair to compare those, but the other thing is, so this is the franchise that's known for the villains. The villains are almost as important as Bond himself, and so, you come from Mads Mikkelsen in No Time or Casino Royale, and Javier Bardem in Skyfall to Christoph Waltz in Spectre, and
Spectre.
it honestly really feels. And then you have Remy Malek, and like Remy Malek's a fine actor, but he playing the villain just doesn't really compare to those. And I get what they're doing is, this is the side effect of Bond and his adopted brother's feud that they didn't even like that Bond didn't even know they were having, but it really feels like it should have been like backwards, and this one should have been Christoph Waltz, and he should have been like the last, real big villain. But the movie itself was fine. Leah Sedonia, or however you pronounce her name,
Uh-huh.
the lady who played Madeline in both Spectre and this movie, is absolutely gorgeous, and is a very good actress. She was also in Mission Impossible, so it's kind of interesting to see that she does like these like French movies, and then she comes over here and she's like, I'm in spy movies. Um, so, but yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, I would recommend going to see it. I think it's a good ending to Daniel Craig, and it'll be real interesting to see where they go from here. I mean, there's a lot of rumors that it's going to be Idris, but I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, you tell me Idris is the new Bond, and I'm fucking 100% in. So,
Yeah, he's I'm not sure how much TV you watch. He was recently in this kind of random commercial where he's quite funny. So I don't know, for whatever
Oh
that's
yeah, no,
worth.
he's hilarious. Like speaking of being TV, he was on the show called The Wire that was on HBO around the same time as The Sopranos, like late
Oh,
'90s, early 2000s. And
okay.
dude, this show is so good. And also there was a very young Michael B. Jordan in there too. So I thought it was kind of interesting that, like when I say young, like he was like a teenager.
Okay.
Um, so that was really that was a good show. So if you're into TV and you want something that's like police procedural kind of show and very gritty, that early HBO style, or late '90s, early 2000s style, then definitely go check out The Wire. All right.
Heard a lot about
So
it.
what have you finally finished, Justin?
Um, get ready to hear me sing this song. I saw Les Mis all the way through finally, and it had Russell Crowe, which a lot of people didn't like, but actually it was the guy who played Marius, who I can't think of his name, who I did not like as much. And let's see, maybe if I pull up the IMDb cast list, this will be much easier to do. Les
Hugh Jackman
Mis.
in
Hugh Jackman's good.
the Amanda Seyfried.
Anne Hathaway won an Oscar, and she was awesome. Amanda Seyfried was meh. It's Eddie Redmayne. I couldn't stand him in this movie. It's not the perfect rendition of Les Mis. Beautiful cinematography. It's a little weird. I mean, not all movies can be The Umbrellas of Cherbourg and sing the whole way through the song and it sound just delightful. This is very rocky in its delivery of being sung all the way through. It's a little overlong and it's tonally kind of strange because the first half is really really depressing with this prostitute trying to make ends meet for her daughter and dying and getting falsely accused and all this stuff, kind of similar to a movie we're gonna be talking a little about in a little bit. But I finally wrapped up Les Mis from Tom Hooper, I think is who did this movie. Not to be confused with Toby Hooper. Now I'm talking out my ass for sure. Come on now. That's the one thing about a movie podcast is you have to know all these little things that are so easy to find, but what?
You don't have to. Like, you can just be like, yeah, great cast, and go on about your day.
I suppose you could. And love this. Maybe I should go back to singing. I'm sure everybody will love that. Yeah,
Oh
Tom
man,
Hooper.
please don't.
But yeah, glad I finally knocked it out. I mean, I'd read the book and I'd seen 2 versions of the play, and I watched the other movie, so it's kind of cool to kind of round out like the big versions of this. And yeah, it's lame.
Yeah, I read the book way back. I'm trying to remember when I read it. I know I read it, and I know it was like on a reading level higher than what grade I was in, but I was reading it beyond that reading level, so it was whatever. But I remember being like, wow, that was it's kind of a hard one to process when I remember reading it. And then I saw that movie quite a while ago. Can't believe I actually saw it before you. But I remember enjoying it and thinking it was very good. So
Actually, I guess it's the funny part of it is I first turned it on a couple Christmases ago when I was like trying to tidying up, and I just kind of had it on in the background. And then I decided I was going to watch it with my father and my aunt. And like an hour into it, actually no, it was probably more like 35 minutes into it, my dad's like, "This is real depressing. Let's watch Shawshank instead." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's not depressing at all, Father." But he got his way, and so finally I got it finished up. And yeah, I have way too many movies that I started and haven't finished. Not way too many, just a handful. But yeah, check out that list of mine on Letterboxd if you're curious to learn more. All right, let's get into our first feature movie of the evening. This is Monster from 2003. It's a bio-crime drama film written and directed by Patty Jenkins. If that name sounds familiar, it's because she did Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot. Okay, let's go back to Monster. Patty Jenkins, in her first directorial debut, or her feature first and debut, that's kind of the same thing, isn't it? The film is about serial killer Eileen Wuornos, a street prostitute who murdered 7 of her male clients between 89 and 90. That's not a very long time. Okay. And was executed in Florida in 2002. It stars Charlize Theron, who also produced it. It also stars Christina Ricci as the semi-fictionalized lover Selby Wall, based on Wuornos' real-life girlfriend. So, Monster. That was a good time, huh?
I mean, it was a good movie. I don't know if it was a good time. All you need is love. I mean, I'm gonna be real, especially in 2003. Like, I mean, everyone knew about this movie. It was a big deal that Charlize, uglied herself up to play this role and, wore the makeup and everything that she wore in this movie.
Yeah.
It's like, but if you had told 18-year-old me in 2003 there was a movie in which Charlize Theron and Christina Ricci were lovers and there was a sex scene, and then that I would have been disappointed in it.
You were disappointed in the sex scene?
I mean, it would have been a lot better if Charlize looked like Charlize.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and we know that Christina Ricci has no problem showing skin. And it was like, bro, come on now. But I mean, obviously that's not the point of this movie. But it's just like the 18-year-old Joey still lives inside of me is like, well, goddamn, where just would have been shocked and appalled at that. But
so I knew about this Eileen from a few years back. There are 2 documentaries at the time they were on Netflix. One of them has since been put into actually it was in there whenever I saw it, the 1001 movies to see before you die. So yeah, the documentaries about her are all like interviews with her in jail, and she'll go on and on about how like it was a conspiracy and they set her up and all this stuff. You can kind of see that she's pretty delusional and quite scary. But this movie takes like a whole nother approach to it, as we'll talk about. And I've had this on my watch list pretty much ever since I joined Letterboxd. So the chance to watch an 2003 movie, and I saw that was on the list, and so I finally jumped on it. I've always found it remarkable just how, Charlize, how they were able to make her look like that, and it's quite the sight. And I remember whenever she got the Oscar for it, I was super curious to check it out then, but not getting to it till now. So let me hit this. Okay, so the documentary has like a much different vibe. It has like I mentioned, Eileen talking from her jail cell. But this is a much different movie because it takes kind of more of a human approach towards showing like what would bring a person to, become a serial killer. So, did you know anything about this heading into it?
I just knew it was about a serial killer. I didn't know. I didn't know anything else outside of that. It was that Charlize played a serial killer.
Any thoughts about serial killers being portrayed as sympathetic victims of society?
So, you always talk about, not you, but people. We always talk about how, what makes a person the way they are, and is it nature or nurture? Is it just they're born a certain way, or is it the environment in which they live? And clearly, like, if you listen to the character in the movie, and I don't know how 100% close it is to the real life person or to who she was before she was executed, but started hooking at 13, was thrown out of her house, never had anybody love her, and had anybody to show love to. And all she just was craved was love since she was a little girl. And then she gets this, young, naive girl, who's also looking for love, and shows her love, and they love each other. And then coincides with, the event where she's, raped pretty viciously, and then escapes before she can be killed, and kills that guy. And it just kind of starts this downward spiral. And then it just keeps, as you watch through the movie, it just keeps going further and further out of control, to where, she ends up at the scene with the cop, and then she ends up with the scene, like, the guy who's genuinely trying to help her, and she was trying to not kill him. And then she's like, oh, he saw the gun, and she just ends up killing him, even though, like, there was really no reason to. But in her head, it was, well, I've got to protect myself to protect Selby. And yeah, so you can see the line, the point A to point B pretty easily there. It's just like, I think you can understand it, because she clearly probably needed some mental help, and that would have prevented those things from happening. And maybe she would have had a different way of viewing how the world was and people were, and how they treated her, and how she reacted towards them. But it didn't happen. And so, yeah, no, I think you can, the seeing her sympathetically is kind of understandable. Yeah, she was kind of a bitch, but her life made her that way. And then, she became a killer. And, there's no real justification for that. And, I don't think, for most people. But, when and outside of, like, self-defense or protecting a child kind of thing. But, you get, you see how her life was, and then you're like, well, I may not agree with it, but I can understand it, that kind of thing. So it's very interesting way to kind of go through a movie where the clear, I don't want to say antagonist, because it wasn't like an antagonist protagonist kind of thing. So, but clearly a villain is going through their life kind of thing.
Anti-hero. It was early on in this where I threw on those subtitles, because there's a lot of internal monologue. I'm not sure if I would have quite caught without those. I really enjoyed the style of the opening there, with showing, like, kind of, it looked like home video footage of, like, an innocent little girl, like, growing up and, like, meeting these people in the world, and then getting taken advantage of eventually. So shows the victim of her, how she's a victim of circumstance, which is kind of a running theme throughout. Let's see. She really was put through the ringer with some of these clients as a highway prostitute. We see how, like, has this firm guard up, because, I mean, she never knows who she's going to be talking to and what they're going to be about. So it was interesting seeing how she developed this, like, real hard exterior towards dealing with people that she didn't really let, like, go away, like, when she was talking to regular people. So a good example of that would probably be in, like, the diner, whenever she's, like, being all cocky that she got some money, and then she's just like, oh, we're going to be eating in some fine places before you know it, and then she starts trashing that place, and because she can't really shut off the decency meter in her head.
Yeah, and she definitely had the, everything was, she was looking for, there's a part where she goes looking for the job, because, she's going to give up hooking, and she's like, well, who would want to do this kind of job? And, Christina Ricci was like, well, you do, is what you said. And then she's like, it's okay, man. I got it all lined up. And she's always got something lined up, or a plan, or, she's like, don't worry about it. She's like, what about my stuff? And, she's like, don't worry about it, buy you new stuff. And then, we'll get a car, and we'll do this and we'll do that. And it's like that's not, no, like, it's not kind of how that works.
I thought they did a really good job at, like, portraying their blossoming friendship / relationship, like, they just feel so natural together whenever like it's like because they're both kind of outcasts and like this is the first time anybody's actually shown them any real tenderness. So yeah, all the scenes of them kind of fall in love together were quite sweet, even though they didn't meet your level of maybe sauciness. But I'm not sure if you would have wanted to see that in this movie.
Well, I mean, like, so they showed the one scene, and I'm not needing like blue as the warmest color here. Like, I was just saying, like, young me would have just been like, what? And then no, I mean, like the scene itself was fine. There's no like nothing wrong with it by any stretch of the means, stretch of the imagination, what have you. But yeah, no, Christina Ricci's character is all, she's living with some friends of her parents, and it's because her dad's mad at her because she found out she's a lesbian, and you can tell like everyone doesn't approve of of her lifestyle, but at least the
At
neighbor,
least the family she's been sent to live with, right?
yeah, well, I mean, her dad clearly doesn't because he sent her away, and then he paid for her medical bills and why she has to go back. I think the mom of the family she stays with, is understanding to a degree, but at the same time, there's the scene later in the diner where she's leaving, but there's the scene where she's like, she's just not, she's just trying to use you, and I honestly think that person cared for her and we just couldn't understand it. She's an adult. This is a decision she's making because she's being shown love, but she's like, hey, this person is like a grifter, is going to take advantage of you, and it's going to get you into trouble. And well, lo and behold, it kind of got her into some fucking trouble. So
what I found interesting was like a big theme in here is like Eileen's appearance. Like anytime anybody ever sees her, they really like kind of have their guard up, and that's kind of like formed her approach to people with having her guard up. And yeah, so they see her as like this opportunist, this whore, this person that she should not be involved with, when it actually turns out that I think Selby is a little bit more of an opportunist than even Eileen is, but they're both quite troubled individuals. The character that Bruce Dern plays, he plays like a storage facility like owner, and yeah, he's very he shows her kindness, but other than like kind of palling around, like maybe having a drink at the bar, their relationship doesn't go beyond that. So he's just, but they do introduce an element of his character a little bit later on that I thought was kind of a clever way of tying together what Arlene's experience was compared to what he shows himself to be, or how he can relate to her. One interesting inclusion I thought was a moment you would not necessarily see in any movie or every movie, but they showed how like she was attempting to like make herself presentable by like washing up in a public restroom bathroom between like kind of wiping the crud off of her and kind of doing her hair. I mean, she looks pretty rough, but definitely better than she started, I suppose. Eileen and Selby, they quite a compelling couple, I would say. It's fun how like Eileen will try to impress her by like bringing her knowledge of like being a prostitute up as she like kind of talks this big game, but when you think about it, like she's full of shit, even though she does know a lot about sex, obviously, but like the things I think she's like talking about more tantalizing like sex compared to like what she has to experience as a highway hooker.
yeah, I mean, I think not only is it maybe trying to impress Selby, but maybe she's also lying to herself to make it to be more tantalizing, or maybe better than just, oh, I'm being used essentially as like a cum dumpster kind of thing. So yeah, so
yeah, maybe justifying like the experience that she does have, because experience plays a part coming up in one of the moments you teased. I thought the skating rink scene was really charming. When Selby helps her get in there. And it appears that Eileen is the one taking advantage of her. It's really the other way around. I think I brought that up before, but yeah. So like the little brother or whatever, not a little brother, just the little boy. It's like a cousin or something, right? He like spots
It's
her at
the
the
it's the son of the people she's staying with.
right. And so yeah, she sees that he sees what she's doing, but doesn't really care. Just kind of does what makes her happy. So, oh yeah, this is that love scene we were, I guess, alluding to, falling in love to that "Don't Stop" song. Which, speaking of The Sopranos, that's the ending of the Sopranos series song, right? Don't stop.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time, but yeah, you're right. All I think about when I think is "Got yourself a gun," which was
Okay.
real interesting to see during the Super Bowl. But
Yeah, that was great. Was it Willow?
yeah, it was with Jamie Lynn Scala or Jamie Lynn Sigler, because I think she's back to her maiden name, and then the son whose name I cannot think of right now. So
Anthony Jr. Well, are you thinking you're talking about the actual actors' names?
oh well, yeah, but yeah, it's Willow who's Jamie Lynn Sigler, yeah, and then the son's name, yeah, Anthony Jr. Yeah.
So then we get kind of more of an inside look at the shitty world of being a prostitute, as she has to deal with these guys. She tries to gain some of their sympathy by showing like pictures of kids. So that's kind of an interesting tactic she takes to kind of maybe make some of these guys chill out. I can't imagine what would be going through your head in a negotiation like that. But she does come across this one big creep who says he's into hurting women and loving women, probably more so hurting. So she ends up having to kill him after she's put in quite the compromised situation.
Yeah, he's got her tied up, and he's got plastic on the car, very much Dexter style, and he definitely looks like he shoves like a bat or something up
Yeah.
there, to yeah. So he didn't do a good enough job tying, and she pulls out that big ass revolver she's got, the hand cannon, and just pumps him full of lead. So
And so she takes all his stuff, and she comes up to Selby, and Selby's kind of like complaining about stuff, but now she has money and can take care of her. No, actually, that's before she starts complaining about like their situation. This is back whenever she's still with the family, and
yeah, she's trying
Eileen
to get her
shows up.
just yeah. Eileen shows up. She missed their date or whatever, and she was trying to show her like, hey, I'm still here. I got held up. Blah blah blah.
I mean, and who doesn't want to be taken care of, or on the other side of the token, who doesn't want to get like a decent paying job and be able to take care of them, not only themselves but other people. Both qualities, I think, both of these women are kind of after, but don't fully get. Let's see, Eileen, after she shows up and gets Selby to hang out with her, or kind of them live together at a motel. Eileen wants to quit and go straight, but Selby sees how this is going to kind of break into their income stream, so she's not the craziest about it. So, I mean, if Selby really like cared about her, she probably would have been a little more supportive. Actually, maybe try going out and having her own like work. But no, she's upset that Eileen's not going to be bringing home the bacon by doing these awful things. So, kind of it's pretty telling.
So I think so. That's I think one way to look at it. I think maybe the other side of it is she is very young and she is very naive. Like one of the things I was thinking about was just how like what the age difference between the two was supposed to be. And obviously she's 21, she's in a bar drinking, but it feels like she's supposed to be really young and hasn't seen much of the world, and thinks of the world as typically a good and a good-hearted place. And you've also, like you said, you've got Lee out there just talking up about like basically trying to make Hooker sound kind of glamorous, lying to herself in the process. And so maybe Selby doesn't just realize just how shitty that it is, and she is, she's been taking care of her whole life. She hasn't had to work. Maybe she broke her arm to get out of working. Who knows? But so
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
maybe
I
it's
forgot
not
about
that.
that.
Yeah. So maybe it's more of she doesn't realize how bad it is, and Lee did say that she would take care of her and would buy her all this stuff and do all this stuff for her. So
I don't know. We'll get into it a little bit
I
later, but there's a lot of like her sitting around like wherever they're at. That was kind of annoying me, especially with how much Eileen was busting it.
But I mean, I think that kind of goes into that same thing as, she said Eileen told her she would take care of her. And then even when Eileen does try to go straight and then, ends up backing out because she's naive about trying to get a job. But I think it was more she expected certain things, whether that was reasonable or not. And that definitely exacerbated things into a way that helped everything spiral out of control.
I think the next sequence really was an interesting way of seeing like this ideal of like the American dream kind of being torn down in a way, as Eileen just wants to have some legitimate work, so she shows up to all these businesses, and I mean, she looks a little rough, but I mean, she dressed up as much as she could, but pretty much is told no everywhere. Just doesn't have a resume, doesn't have any experience, and I mean, the honest truth of the matter is, if you don't have experience, you better have somebody that on the other side to help break you into a certain career. Otherwise, it is pretty tough. So she sees that the hard way.
Yeah, which is ridiculous, because how can you get that experience without having it? So yeah, but then she ends up going to, I guess, like, I don't want to say the unemployment office, but some sort of place that helps you get jobs.
I think,
and they're like,
like a temp agency or something.
Yeah, something like that. And they're like, oh, well, you have a felony. The only thing you're going to get is factory work, and we don't have that right now. And she's like, please, I need anything. And they're just like, no. So
you don't know. And she says, you don't know me, but like, so like I was bringing it up earlier, like the appearance factor, like we can look at her and automatically judge, that she's a little not the most pleasant person to look at, and you can kind of assume different things. But I mean, although some of that is like true on her, should you make those assumptions before you know somebody? So I thought it was cool how this movie kind of gets you asking those kind of questions.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
And then then we go back to kind of her naive ideals from, being young and thinking, if you love yourself and you believe in yourself, things will work out. But as she says, that's not exactly the case. Like we had mentioned before, Eileen likes to talk like she knows what she's talking about, especially whenever she has some coin. Meanwhile, Selby's complaining that she's starving and why can't she do anything? Oh, I already complained about that. But that's in my note right there at that point where...
I think at that point it's, but at the same time, they're out buying a bunch of beer and they're out, they're partying, buying cigarettes and stuff. I mean, they could definitely have been spending that money a bit more conservatively, and maybe she wouldn't have been running out of food. I know it's kind of hard, and you live in a hotel, you're probably buying a bunch of takeout and stuff, but at the same time, they definitely could have done that a little differently.
Going back to the temp agency part, like there's that moment where she's like, can I just talk to you like woman to woman? And she gets ignored at that point. And so basically that female camaraderie fails her. And then even like the law enforcement fails her because a cop picks her up. She thinks she's in trouble, but really he just wants to, pay her to be a hooker because she has that reputation. Reputation's a big part of this as well. So even kind of like law enforcement and the law of the land kind of fail her too. So everything is pretty much shitting on Eileen here.
Everyone wants to come on Eileen.
Oh,
I'm sorry. It's a horrible reference. You can just edit that out. That was terrible.
I'm gonna have to keep.
But
it.
yes, you. Reputation. Yeah, I think a lot of it is reputation. I mean, and that's one of those things, and it's it's horrible, but I mean, when someone has a reputation, if you don't know them, all you have is that reputation to go off of. And then if they do something that reinforces that even a little bit, then you just, that stigma stays there and that just kind of lingers, like, so.
Then it really drove me crazy when Selby had the nerve to blame Eileen for, the situation that they're in. The moment that comes to mind is Eileen's even like scrubbing the oven, thinking, she's going to bring home the bacon. Selby's going to, at least be a happy homemaker, but that's not really the case.
So to me, so that's the scene after Selby takes the car and is out and about, goes and meets some friends and stuff. So
True.
you talk about how Selby's always sitting around. Well, I mean, Eileen's the one that is borrowing the cars from her friends, as she likes to put throughout the movie, and this, that, and the other. I mean, Selby really doesn't have any way to get anywhere. So she tried to wake Lee up for this, but Lee's drunk and probably tired from the whole night before, and so she's like, I'm gonna go do shit, because I mean, she didn't want to stay cooped up in the house. Like, I think there's that side to it where you're like, Selby's not doing anything, but I think maybe Selby feels trapped, because I mean, she blames her for their situation because she was going to leave, and Lee was like, no, I will take care of you. Like, stay an extra week, stay. And then, she was just like, oh my God, she saw that as a way out of her oppressive life from her family, where, she wasn't going to be able to be her, be gay and be out kind of thing. So I think that trickles down into like everything else throughout the movie. Cause I mean, you see her cleaning the kitchen, but like when I don't think they really showed the kitchen like beforehand, but it didn't seem like it would be one of those places where their house would be a sty. I feel like Lee just got pissed or maybe was manic or something, because I mean, she definitely had some issues, and that's just the way that it came out.
Yeah,
and that she
gets aggressive,
took it out on. Yeah, she always gets super aggressive quickly. So
it's like almost with this movie, like any like person you kind of want to side with, you end up kind of eventually conceding that they're not a great person. No one's really a great person in this movie at all. Then from kind of that point, we see, how she basically perceives all her clients as creeps, even though it's kind of a Russian roulette of, the kind of guy that she's actually going to get. So there's a guy that like wants to talk dirty with her. So he talks about like her calling him daddy, and like she instantly processes this as like him wanting to be a child molester. So like she has a different way of thinking about this clientele, which has her more apt to maybe pull the gun.
So in that specific scene when she asked him if he likes to fuck his kids, I was like, you know what? That's a fucking fair ass question, because I don't get the person that you're sleeping with, like you're sleeping with a female and you want them to call you daddy. Like, that's fucking weird, man. Like, I don't get it. Like, it kind of just gives me the heaves thinking about it, and there, people always joke around, oh, I'll have her call me daddy. And it's like, but why? Like, that's
a pretty commonplace fetish. I mean, to take it literally, yeah, you're 100% right. But
I mean, but yeah, where, like, that's at least a common one that's, I guess, all these girls have daddy issues, she's gonna call me daddy, but like,
yeah,
no, please don't ever actually call me that during. That's gonna be weird, and I'm probably gonna stop like right then and there, because it's freaking weird, man. So anywho,
we know, ladies, you've been warned.
Oh yeah, like there's like I have lady prospects, please.
Oh man. So bringing home the bacon gets Selby to reward her. Let's see here. I think I'm getting into okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, Selby's very naive to what Eileen's actually having to do in order to get like these perks or whatever. I think she pretty much just is like, okay, I get to enjoy this. I don't need to worry about it. So this gets into the part where they're driving that red car around and she crashes it, which really kind of throws Eileen's world upside down, because you actually have like evidence that's starting to probably mount against her in this crazy stuff she's doing off on the side.
Right? Like it's I mean, yeah, she's just driving around in a dead person's car, like so, which is not very smart either. But I guess if you're trying to use what you can, and it's the 80s, they can't just look at the license plate number and immediately be like, oh, this belongs to so and so. It takes a
That's
little
good
bit
point.
more effort than that. So, it wouldn't be something that they would have had to think about a ton.
Yeah, probably weren't it is into like DNA evidence and stuff. Yeah, that's a good point. Why maybe the investigation was a little slower because they didn't have quite as many tools to be working with. It's nice to see that there's a bit of a balance between the kind of guys she's getting with. There's like that nervous first timer, and as aggressive as she starts out being, she kind of concedes and just kind of gives him a little hand job or whatever to it's an awkward little situation, but it shows how like not everybody she's going after or not going after, but just kind of getting picked up by. Not all of them are the worst guy in the world. Not that I'm justifying the people getting hookers on the highway.
I mean, yeah, that's a kind of completely separate thing, but a lot of them are depicted as either being having fetishes aren't bad, but having like a negative fetish, I guess is the best way to describe that. Like the guy who wants to like beat her and rape her, and I guess that's not even really a fetish, but like just she takes everything, and from that point on is everybody is either married or wants to hurt her or is some sick twisted guy because they're picking up a lady on the street, and it's like I mean, that's not the case, as you see with the guy who's the nervous first timer, or you see with the guy who is the police officer whose wife is a paraplegic or quadriplegic or what have you, and then the guy who's just giving her a ride, so you see that her whole reality is so twisted, but she can't see that.
Yeah, great point. This is the part where Selby goes out to hang out with some just regular ladies at the gay bar. This makes Eileen super jealous. Selby even kind of talks a big game, just like Eileen would, like I think about office work or whatever. One of the interesting things to me is, go ahead.
I was going to say she just recants the story of what happened to Lee, or Eileen, but to Lee when she went out looking for that job where she, cussed out the lawyer guy.
And so the monster that they're referring to at one point, an inner monologue kind of explains that there's like this Ferris wheel ride that like she was so excited to get on that like she puked or whatever. And that's a pretty cool metaphor for what this is all about being in these situations where you're not exactly sure how to react to it. And when they show him on the Ferris wheel during that one scene, like she's like really uncomfortable at first, but then like she opens up her eyes and kind of chills out. So yeah, cool metaphor to kind of. There's a lot going on in this movie that I really enjoyed. Let's see. Talks about how society views hookers as taking the easy way out. Yeah, that's definitely an understandable assumption, even though, as we see from this movie, I mean, they say pimping's not easy, but it's much worse for the ladies involved.
Yeah, so, that was back to where we were talking about earlier. So Selby's in the dining room talking with, I think the lady's name was Anne, who was the lady she was staying with, and the lady's just like, all of us want to, we have bad things happen to us. Our moms aren't nice, our dads aren't nice, but we don't go take the easy way out and sleep with men for money. And it's like, I don't know if it's true anymore in real life, but you see it all the time in movies where it's like, oh, they're just taking the easy way out, or they're disgusting and what have you. And it's like, I don't know if that's nothing about it from the way it's depicted on movies and TV shows typically, and I imagine has some truth to it. would seem like the easy way out. I mean, you have all the things that you have to worry about, being beaten to death, or something that you don't want to happen, or getting a disease, and all of that kind of stuff. It just seems like it's just not the easy way out.
So after Selby crashes that car, like it's neat to see Eileen like jump into action and like try to get the hell out of there. And I can definitely relate with wanting to get out of a pressure situation like that. But that forces Selby to finally kind of clue into the fact that she is part of this kind of outlaw duo, as it were. As they get that out of there. They get the plate off the vehicle and ditch it. Eileen then becomes quite delusional about the accountability that they're dealing with. Let's see, where was I getting into that? Take it for a second.
Okay, yeah. So I think at this point, this is where it comes into they have that conversation, like you said, and she finds out, Selby being she finds out that Lee's been killing all these people, and then they go into this conversation where Lee even goes into how she's okay with God, she's good with God, and how can all these people kill for political reasons or in wars or whatever as police officers, and they're considered heroes. And Selby says something, why can't you just can't kill people? And she's like, why can't I? Like, who says I can't, kind of thing. And it's like, society, like everybody ever. But yeah.
Oh, and plus well, at first she's looking at these newspaper articles and seeing like they're not like on her trace at all. But like, I think when I was thinking about not being held accountable was like when she finally gets taken into custody, like, oh, they don't have anything on me, they just think it's this or that. And she's quite deluded.
Yeah, she said it was like an outdated warrant.
You know all about outdated warranties, don't you?
Man, I could go a lifetime without having to try to fucking hawk a warranty to somebody again. It would be fantastic.
So Eileen still just wants to kind of just live the straight and narrow life with Selby, but things are going downhill quite quickly. See, Eileen really fucks up whenever she misreads a client situation with this tough guy approach, and she ends up killing this cop. And so that's definitely going to get the heat on her. Here's the conversation I was alluding to earlier. So Bruce Dern, he totally sympathizes with her and relates with her because he makes the comparison to veterans coming back into society being a lot like maybe an adult sex worker. You're going to have this training, reputation, experience that doesn't really fit into society. And so how do you deal with that? So I thought that was a really interesting comparison that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, it did. It was real interesting to kind of see that. And then that's right after that is where you see on the news,
yes,
now where you see where the police is right on him and there's sketches and he knows, he knows it's her kind of thing.
Yep, heat is getting quite on him, and then she's still hitting the highway. She still needs money, totally oblivious to the fact that the end is near. So this guy just wanting to help her out picks her up, and I think she's about to get out of the car, but then the gun drops, and so she knows that every little bit of evidence is gonna make a big difference. So even though he's begging for his life, she caps him outside the car. So she's gone off the deep end, I would say.
Yeah, and this is where where I was talking to earlier. So the guy just starts, hey, you can come stay. My son's gone, but you can stay in his room. My wife isn't gonna care. He's being genuine. She can tell that he's not trying there to just fuck her and what have you. And so she's pull the car over, and he's like, no, it's gonna be fine. No one can see you. I don't want you to get hit by a car or whatever. And then the gun falls. And to me, it looked like he kind of picked it up and handed it to her. And it's maybe he was reaching for it and she got it first. I don't know. But it's at this point, she's just a woman with a gun. He picked her up. He let her go. She doesn't. You're right. She doesn't need to kill him. But she's, the pressure's on. She knows, they're trying to get money and trying to bail, and
Yeah.
so yeah, she just, and she's like, no, I have to. I can't leave evidence, and is, kind of sad, and the screen goes black as the gunshot goes out, and you're just like, God damn it, like. That it would still wouldn't have been like totally redeeming, but that would have been like the redeeming moment. But that's like the 100% damning moment.
Oh, that. Well, plus the cop killing the cop too. But
Well, yeah, but like
Oh, in terms of morality.
Yeah. But I mean, like he pulled his keys out of his pocket to hand them to her, and I guess she thought it was another gun. That's kind of how I took it, because you could see him reach and pull something out of his pocket, and that's when she shot him, and it was car keys, because he was just going to give her the car keys and he would go about his day, I guess. But yeah, so I mean, that's damning, but it's not, you can, okay, well, much like cops thought the person was reaching, because we already, she's like, well, you had a gun in the car, I can't be with a person with a gun in the car, blah blah blah. And then here the guy's clearly just straight begging, and she just shoots him and, executes him in the back of the head. So
when I was actually flipping through this movie to take notes, yeah, those scenes with her talking to men in their cars definitely were like, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff in this movie, like the friendship romance elements, but yeah, that the moments, the periods where she's in these interactions in the cars definitely, I think, were portrayed pretty smartly in terms of progressing the story while also like giving some life experience. Selby takes off. I think she goes home, and Eileen gives her some money to do so. Bruce, the Bruce Dern character, tries to warn Eileen that she needs to get the hell out of Dodge, but she will not listen. So she walks out with some guys. I guess they're undercover cops, and she gets busted. We see her in the famous images of her in the orange jumpsuit as she's incarcerated. She gets on the phone with Selby, who ends up ratting her out completely. And yeah, she's like, she's deluded, like we were saying before. She thinks, nothing's going to stick. But yep, she gets pointed right out in court. Once again, puts up that hard exterior as she starts lashing out in the courtroom, saying how she's a victim who was basically raped by circumstance. Yeah, monsters.
So during that phone call,
go ahead.
So during that moment, that phone call with Selby, like there's that spot where she realizes that Selby isn't, I guess, talking how Selby normally would talk, and so she knows that they're recording her, and she's like, so I'll tell him it was all on me. Like you can tell the look on her face, she knows what's happening. But that's where you see that she does care about Selby, at least in the way that she can, and so she takes the blame, and which I mean is rightfully so. I mean, she did all the fucking killing. So, but then they go into court, and Selby points her out, and she's like, yeah, I was raped, and you're saying rape by circumstance, which is a reasonable take as well. I mean, I think that she was, but I think she was physically talking about actually being raped by that first guy that she killed, and
yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, and even leading up to that, I'm sure there was plenty of rapes throughout her career as an adult sex worker before we even got to this point. Because she wanted to kill herself underneath that bridge before she stepped into that gay bar, and got dried off and had a beer with Selby there. Let's see here. I thought Monster was way better than like your typical like true crime fare. I'm not really into true crime stories at all, but like taking this deep dive into like human like motivations and what drives somebody to do something, it's just captured excellently in this movie. I really need to revisit the documentaries now, because yeah, I remember them being kind of their own experience in themselves, and obviously, well, I was going to say, with a documentary, you're more of seeing the truth, but, any documentary can be spun any which way, especially in this circumstance where, like, I think there was, right after she was arrested, there was, like, a book deal and stuff. So I think a lot of the stuff that happened, like, with telling her story, she thought got politicized and made it seem like more conspiracy-oriented. So yeah, throwing all that out there. Great performances, great storytelling. Monsters. I mean, it's not a fun one. A lot of bad people, but it's a good one. I'll say that. 4.5 stars.
Yeah, same 4.5. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, sweet. Any final words on Monster?
I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching. It's on everything. It's on Netflix and Tubi and IMDb and like every streaming platform. Like it's out there. It's there. So it's pretty easy to watch. Great performances. And I think it is really like even talking about it and things that I didn't even think of while watching it. There's some layers to it other than just being a true crime kind of thing. So it's I think it's really good and well worth watching.
I think you picked up on even more of the sympathetic elements than I did. Like, I think you had a little bit more sympathy for Selby, and maybe I'm thinking more on lines of the metaphorical aspects compared to the true life aspects of it. So appreciate that perspective.
I mean, and I know, like, seeing yours, I think this is one of those things where we both liked the movie and we liked a lot of the same things, but we also took some different things from it. And a lot of times me and you may not necessarily like crisscross like that. Like, a lot of times we're usually far off. So it's definitely interesting to see just where it's basically the same thing, but just from like a slightly different perspective and how much that can change something. And I think that was a thing in the movie too. And just everything kept falling, for Lee on this one side. And if 2 or 3 things before Selby had fallen that other way, and then Selby falls so far on one side, and she's doing everything she can to keep it. So yeah, no, it's definitely worth watching for sure.
Hopefully we sounded somewhat intelligent talking about that. I mean, after kind of a layoff of podcasting, to jump right into like this sex worker serial killer story that was kind of a challenge to talk about. So hopefully we made our points.
It was very good.
Right after the break, I hear that train a-comin'. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck at Folsom Prison. And we're going to be talking about Walk the Line. But that train keeps a-rolling down to San Antone. Be right back. We are back talking about Walk the Line, which was Joey's Wheel of Destiny pick, I believe.
Yes, it was the Wheel of Destiny.
This is from 2005, a biomusical romantic drama film directed by James Mangold. We're familiar with Mangold. He did Identity, which we did last episode. The screenplay was based on 2 autobiographies authored by singer-songwriter Johnny Cash. 1975's Man in Black, his own story in his own words, and 1997's Cash, the autobiography. The story follows Cash's early life, his romance with June Carter, and his ascent in the country music scene. It stars Joaquin Phoenix as Cash, Reese Witherspoon as Carter, Jennifer Goodwin as Cash's first wife, Vivian, and Robert Patrick, the T-1000 himself, as Cash's father. Pretty good casting there, I would say. Yeah.
So, while looking up movie trivia for the trivia game, I was trying to actually find some trivia about this movie, but none of it was good, like where I could ask you questions about it. But so Robert Patrick that same year also played Johnny Cash's father. He also played Elvis Presley's father in a movie. And Elvis obviously was very prominent throughout the big parts of this movie as well. So Johnny Cash and Reese Witherspoon sung all their own songs. They took 6 months of vocal lessons to be able to do so. They
Okay.
Joaquin Phoenix learned how to play the guitar. She learned how to play the harp. Like that was all. They did all of that themselves.
Okay.
Um, their son, so was it Johnny Carter Cash, I think, or anyway, their son was a co-producer, and during a screening, his half sister, so one of the girls that Johnny had with Vivian, thought that it was an Oscar worthy movie, and that Joaquin and Reese were perfect, but they thought that it didn't depict their mother quite well, and that it showed
Vivian?
Johnny being, yeah, it didn't depict Vivian in a good light,
Yeah.
and it showed Johnny being a lot harsher than he was, and that he didn't it didn't show as much time with his girls. Apparently he spent way more time with them than it was shown in this movie, to which her brother, the producer, was like, well, it's supposed to be a love story between my mom and my dad, and so that kind of leaves Vivian a little bit on the outside there. And there was some other stuff, but those were the ones that kind of stuck out that I remembered. I just kind of wanted to speak on real quick.
I saw this twice in the theater, once in the United States and once in Sweden, and enjoyed it both times quite a bit. I was a big advocate for this winning as many awards as it did, and Reese Witherspoon did win Best Actress for her portrayal of June.
Very much deserved, in my opinion.
Now, did you know anything about Johnny Cash heading into this film the first time?
The very first time, no, I didn't know a lot. I mean, I knew the name. I knew that he was like a legend in music, but I didn't know much about him. I think I knew that he was married to June Carter Cash, but outside of that, no, I didn't know a ton.
Okay, yeah, same boat here. I'm wondering if people who are like diehard like Johnny and June fans might see this flick a little differently. I mean, you just gave the perspective there of their son, so maybe not.
So I think people who are diehard fans would probably appreciate this movie because both June Carter Cash approved of Reese Witherspoon and Johnny Cash approved of Joaquin playing them respectively, and they died. She died right before production, and he died a few months later. Yeah. So all of June Carter's clothes in the movie was because Reese went through got permission and looked through her wardrobe essentially, and these are the clothes she has. We need them to look like this. And for Johnny or for Joaquin, they went and looked at pictures of his concerts and videos of his concert and public appearances and people's clothes, fans who owned his clothing in private collections, and then made replicas of them. So from that aspect, I mean, they tried to get it pretty authentic. I mean, obviously it's going to be dramatized, to be a movie, but I think they, from the research I did, I mean, you could probably do more research. I didn't do very long research, but it just seemed like it was very much done as an homage. Like the guy, not Mangold, because Mangold had to get the rights from this other guy. But this all actually came about due to a 1993 episode of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman that Johnny Cash was on. And he was talking to this guy, and I guess he was a producer or a writer or something on Dr. Quinn. And he was like, I want to do a movie about your life. And Johnny Cash was like, hell yeah, let's go. And it took him from 93 to 05 before it happened. So
okay. Now
more stuff that I randomly found out today.
Actually, whenever I like the fact that you had mentioned that they sang their own songs, because after I saw this, I actually preferred the Joaquin versions compared to the Cash version, since Cash is a little twangier. So I don't want to call Cash country since I'm an avid non-country fan. I like to consider it as maybe folk, outlaw folk. Kind of. I mean, where do you see Johnny in relation to Cash, or Johnny Cash's relationship to country? What say you?
He's definitely that old school, he is outlaw country rock. I think would be
okay.
Almost. I mean, so like when you think of, say, Leonard Skinner, like they're considered Southern rock, but if you take that electric guitar down some of what they sing about, it's very reminiscent of like that old school style country music, which makes sense. They're Southern boys. It's just a little more rocky. So, I definitely feel like he's like country, like outlaw country rock. I mean, obviously he's very different than like Luke
Elvis.
Bryan or Lee Brice or some of those guys who are out there now. But I
Oh,
mean, I
okay.
think if you take somebody like, say, I don't know, a Garth Brooks or a Travis Tritt, who were definitely, in the late 80s and 90s, that country was much closer to that than what is like on the radio today, which is just kind of twangy pop for the most part.
Yeah. I think the movie has an excellent opening as we get like the shots around the prison as we hear this concert about to happen, which is pretty much the climax of the movie. But yeah, you hear this booming, you see all these names pop up for the movie, the opening title sequence. You got this toe tap and this hand clapping. We are ready to jam to some Folsom City or Folsom Prison Blues, and yeah, we cut backwards instead, so that's a little tease. But we do get the imagery of the circular saw, and man, those things freak me out, and for good reason. Somebody gets pretty much cut to pieces on one of these things coming up soon, which yeah, is an ongoing theme throughout the whole thing. Just because, let's see, Johnny, he's kind of a he's not meek, but I would say he's more childish, and he's really into singing like hymnal music and stuff, and he takes after his mom. Where his older brother is a little more wise, a little bit more better worth ethic. So you can see why his father would like him, and his father flat out says after he gets killed on a circular saw or some kind of a cutting apparatus that yeah, God took the wrong son. Pretty shaking stuff right there.
So yeah, and I don't necessarily know that one of his brothers older, and I thought that they were like 10 and 8 or maybe 12 and 10, but later in the movie Johnny says he was 12, so I guess his brother was 13 or 14, and it's not even necessarily that that he had that much more work ethic. I mean, I get it, it was the 40s and it was a different time, but these are young boys and they're out in this field just, I guess, picking crops, and it's supposed to be like 100 degrees, 100 plus degrees, and like those kids shouldn't have been, they shouldn't have had to be working like that, and they shouldn't have been working like that. It was a different time, so it is what it is. But it's that, yeah. Well, can you imagine, like, if, like, I couldn't imagine, and I'm the older brother, but I couldn't imagine that if something happened and my little brother was killed, and my stepfather, but my father, he's one of my fathers, was like, you know what, God took the wrong son. Like, I couldn't imagine what that would, as an adult, would do to me, much less as a 12-year-old kid. Like, that's, like, especially seeing as they were best friends. Like, and you see that later on. Like when they fast forward and he's going into the Air Force, you see him, he runs and skips the same way, and even later on when he gets to, him and June go fishing and he's holding the fishing pole like the same way. And yeah, so I mean, it had such a massive impact in so many ways on the rest of his life. I mean, that is just a shitty thing to say. Like, and I get it, you're supposed to hate his dad. Well, man, I fucking hate his dad. I'm glad as the T1 that he got blown to shred by Arnold like 20 years previous. Like,
And when I was getting out with worth ethic, so like in like the sawmill, like, so he's just kind of sitting there, and he keeps an eye on his brother, and he helps, like, 'cause I think the brother's kind of working too hard, and I think he's letting like the saw like creep up on the whatever he's cutting, and he's like, no, you go ahead fishing, and I'll take care of the work here. He probably shouldn't, because we've already seen where he had to stop the saw once. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame him. He's a happy-go-lucky kid and just wants to go fishing, and is thinking his brother's not going to be far behind. But that is not the case, unfortunately. And as the father says, where were you?
I mean, to be fair, his older brother told him to go do it. Typically, most younger brothers are going to listen to their older brothers. And then two, I mean, Saturday was supposed to be fishing day, but their family was in such dire straits. They heard their parents fighting about money. He's like, oh, well, he said he'd give me $1 to cut this for me to cut this wood, not for us to cut this wood. I do remember that being for him saying me. Now
Okay.
maybe, he's doing that to like put it all on himself and, protect his little brother so the little brother can go and be a kid kind of thing. But like also, why wasn't the dad doing that? Oh wait, he was out getting drunk. And why did the other adult let a kid use a fucking circular saw? Like I get it, it was the 40s as a different time period, but like that's not a safe thing to use, like especially like you have to be very careful, and kids don't have the strength to hold the wood the right way or to know when to use good judgment and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was just a recipe for disaster.
Did it show the father at the bar during that incident?
It didn't show him at the bar, but it was when they were fighting in the fields, his mom said something about him being at the bar or getting drunk or something on Saturdays.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, and then so and they allude to that in that Thanksgiving scene near the end, where he asked his dad where he was, and he's like, "Well, I given up alcohol a long time ago. What about you, hot shot?"
All
Or
right.
whatever he
Right.
called him, and
Okay.
yeah, but so no, it was that obvious. Yeah, he had given up drinking, but not at that point.
I like how in a lot of the intimate moments we spend with the young Cash, um, he's like stringing lyrics together. Like he's kind of like, you just kind of see that musical side of him kind of creeping out slowly. Flash forward a bit, and he's sent to Germany during the Korean War. So even his father gives him shit about not being on the actual front lines of what's going on. But yeah, he starts kind of. Oh, that's right. He goes
Hashtag
to
dick.
like he goes to a screening of, I think, conditions at Folsom Prison, and that gives him inspiration to start singing about that. So let's see. He latches on to that one girl. So he's just like, oh, and that's it's kind of funny all the
Vivian.
similarities this has to Monster, where like the one person like gets promised certain things and expects those to get carried out. Both sequences, both stories here.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, especially once that looks like Vivian gets used to the life that he's living on the road. I mean, he's making money, then they're, she's being taken care of, but like clearly he starts whoring around, and even before something's happening with June, like Vivian can tell that if it's not happening, it's gonna, or they want it to, kind of thing. So I mean, I think like if he doesn't meet June, like maybe it doesn't get that out of hand. But I mean, clearly we also saw him being a bit of a whore, being a rock star. So I mean, like none of that justifies it, but I mean that's what comes with the territory, right? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, before you know it, he's back in the United States, and he already has a couple kiddos, and he's forced to go door to door salesman to try to make ends meet for the family. She's real pissed at him, Vivian, that is, because like I guess her dad has a job lined up for him, but he doesn't want to do that because he has his music career in mind, which Vivian unfortunately resents. Um, yeah, and one day, after a few failed sales pitches, he discovers this record music studio and sets out to pretty much get his band in there for an audition not long after. Let's see here. Oh, this is about the time whenever like they find out the house is getting foreclosed on, and so he really needs to make sure something comes together.
Yeah, he's got to, and because that's when he goes in and he tells the guy, he's like, I ain't got time to schedule an audition. Like, I got to do it now.
Yeah.
So,
So I really like this movie, but I think a part that bugs me is something that you had mentioned before, where I do feel like Vivian gets the short end of the straw here. Um, he just seems so like doesn't give a shit around her, and it's all focused on like his blossoming relationship with June, which I mean, as charming as that is, like I don't know, I just feel so much for his his first wife, who's getting strung along, and unfortunately probably gets strung along way too long.
Okay, so I've got some things there. So the first
Okay.
part and the part of the movie where we're talking about now, like, so this is we're in the 50s now. So everything about providing for the family is on the man.
Hmm.
So he's out there trying to sell things door to door. It's not working. He wants to be a musician. So he's got the my dream versus caring for my family, and obviously he made his dream happen, and he was able to care for his family. But as you get further on into the movie and he starts the relationship blossoms with June, and then they end up married for 35 years. So I mean, obviously that was who he was meant to be with, kind of thing. But it's just love is messy, which is kind of what we learned from the first movie in a much different way, like a much different way, where that was also messy and deranged. This is messy because, like, I think as much as he could and knew how to, he loved Vivian, but also the way he treated her was the way he saw his father treat his mom. And that happens a lot. That's back to, well, that's what he saw, that's what he grew up with. And June's with somebody and gets divorced, and then ends up with the stock car driver, and the whole time they want to be together but they can't or won't, and it's none of it's right, but it's that thing where love is it's very messy, and it's not always cookie cutter like we see in a lot of movies. Like, and people make mistakes and they hurt people, and sometimes they're forgiven and sometimes they're not. And that's kind of where I thought that this movie, whether it was trying to or not, did a very good job of showing that. Because, like, yes, he did hurt Vivian, and he also hurt June, and he felt really bad about it. But and he hurt himself, but he still only knew how to be himself, and all the trauma he went through as a kid from his father, and then living the fast rock and roll style lifestyle that he was living. I mean, so it's I think it's again, where it was kind of another unintentional similarity to the first movie that we watched.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot of. So I made that complaint, and as I was writing it, I was trying to check myself and being like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Where love isn't messy, and despite the fact that I don't like it about his character, doesn't necessarily drag down the movie. It just how I feel about it. So things to keep in mind there. Cash gets his audition. They start off with that kind of that hokey gospel music that they all know, and then that morphs into this, them actually kind of coming up with Folsom Prison on the fly with the simple chords or whatever his band use, and him really selling the song with his unique voice and his personality. So I just love all the songs in this movie are fantastic. So from a musical perspective,
Yes, I mean,
this is flawless.
I mean, a lot of Johnny Cash's songs are really good. Like, while I was looking up, some of the stuff that I needed to do to get ready for tonight, like I had Spotify on and I was just listening to Johnny Cash. So, no, it's definitely it's very good, and I feel much like how after I watched the Queen movie and then the Motley Crue movie, like I imagine that my listening of Johnny Cash will go up.
So pretty much right after he gets the record cut, he goes out on tour. Get to see a lot of other bands, music of the time. We get Elvis. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool to see how like a small group of like musicians that have made it out touring. That was kind of a neat groove to go in after cutting a record. Go ahead.
Yeah, and like just how all of them at that point were not big. So you had Jerry Lee Lewis, you had Elvis, you had Johnny Cash. Later in, you saw Waylon Jennings, and they talked about Bob Dylan. I can't remember if they showed him or not, but that specific tour, like at that point, like Carter, June, she's on the tour, but she's kind of like the big wig because her family's been in it the whole time. And but it's interesting to see, like Elvis, one of the biggest stars of all time, Johnny Cash, one of the biggest stars of all time, Jerry Lee Lewis was a huge star. So they all started and they're playing in these tiny little like gym kind of things. They're not even playing like bars. When you think of someone starting out now and they played in a bar, like you think of like Whiskey a Go-Go in the 80s or something. But so yeah, it was very interesting to see that, and then see that they were just all hanging out, and kind of they all became friends and family and all of that. So I mean, I think that was a good a good touch and a good way to show some stuff there.
I mean, one reason you can't, like, I can't be mad at the fact that, this is a June Johnny love story is, number one, that's like what their life ended up being. But man, Reese Witherspoon is just brilliant as June. She's so sweet, so authentic, so charming and funny and serious when she needs to be. She's just the full package, which I think we kind of alluded to already.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I think, especially you think about some of the big actresses from that time period, and Reese seems to get overlooked. And she's been in some humongous movies, and she's always beautiful. She always acts very well. Everything, that as far as who she is as an actual person, she seems to be a good person. Now, I mean, I something could have happened I don't know about, but I don't ever remember seeing anything about her,
I think you're on
doing
point there.
something horrible. Yeah, so I mean, it's just, I think she just kind of gets overlooked, and you watch this movie, and you see just like all of the acting chops that are there, and it's great. And I think some of that Southern charm is legitimate. Because I was curious if I was like, I don't really remember her having that kind of that Southern draw. But she was born in Nolens and grew up in Memphis, so I mean, I think that she got that. She knew how to do that Southern thing real well because she's Southern.
Easily some of my favorite parts of the movie is just Johnny on stage in general, getting to hear Joaquin's voice, his stage presence, making the guitar like feel like a gun almost, as he's like putting all this attitude in the songs. And it was really neat to see some of the other performers, how they're like kind of bopping to the music and stuff. So it really gets the music gets in you throughout this. I liked how with June, like there's that scene where like the lady's just like, you have good Christian parents, but I'm surprised your parents associate with you. So they really bring up like the whole Christian element of like divorce and what they're singing about, and about being like partying and stuff, and how a lot of Christians probably weren't okay with that at the time. So I like how the movie depicts all that as being an obstacle they kind of have to get past in order to finally be together. The fact that
Yeah.
that their faith doesn't necessarily on their side about it.
Well, yeah, because that lady, because at that point they're in West Virginia. I didn't take it as her being a Christian singer. I took it just as country, and all Southern people are hardcore religious kind of thing. But yeah, maybe you're right there. But it's she's like, I just got out of this really rough divorce, and I can't. And she's like, oh yeah, you're also kind of married. But they go and they get the fishing poles at that point, and she shows him how to like use a modern rod and reel and all of that. And so it's just it's one of those things where it's just really cute, and like they're being friends, and it's kind of growing, and you can tell there's something there, but they just not in that spot to do anything about it.
It might have just been me, but I kind of gave that scene a closer look, the fishing scene, and I don't think Johnny really needed help learning how to cast. I think he just wanted, June to give him a little lesson there to stroke his ego.
I mean, maybe he wanted that connection, or see if she would, kind of thing. I mean, he
really wanted her to hold his pole.
Boy, I thought I was going to be the only one that made a really bad pun in this episode. I mean,
Lord,
when you're courting somebody, no, you're good, brother. When you're courting somebody, there is a game to it. I'm not trying to say that the whole thing is a game and you need to lie or anything, but there is that game of feeling each other out and seeing what if I do this? If I do this, what are they going to do? And that whole thing to it. So definitely some psychology probably going on there. You're right.
But we really get to see Vivian kind of put through the ringer. She just wants a normal life, where Johnny, once he gets off the road, he just kind of wants to chill and kind of look off into the ether and just come up with his next song idea. And Vivian is not having that whatsoever. If it had to be with June, let's see here. Vivian could not handle him doing nothing at home, and wants nothing to do with June, right? And there's even that moment where June goes and is very nice to their children or whatever, and Vivian is having none of that. So
Well, yeah, that is a bit later. That's
yes,
after they start doing like the Johnny Cash show.
right.
Because when he's like come back, that was after they went to the award show, and they were both very cordial to each other, the two ladies. And then Johnny gets up and runs after her because he said some kind of dickish things to her, and then he's like, "Hey, come on tour. We're gonna do this show. It's 1 week a year." Or 1 week a month, excuse me, and if you got to go home, I pay you anyway, kind of thing. Because I mean, Johnny Cash at that point was kind of he had become like he was Johnny Cash, and like he was Johnny Cash at that point,
Yeah.
So
What I was trying to say there is, if he had to be with June, like it'd been nice to see him cut off things with Vivian earlier, instead of all the fallout we see. But at the same time, I mean, we don't get all the drama of this movie if we cut out the uncomfortable parts.
But I mean, also at the same time, like it's that you talk about going back up to where those people got on June for divorcing. So what happens to Johnny Cash if he divorces his wife?
Yeah.
There's that aspect, because divorce was still very much taboo then. And then you also if he's not going to leave Vivian, I do think he cares about her, but if he can't be with June, he's not just going to be alone. I mean, a lot of people are scared of being alone, and then what does that do to his kids? And so there's that whole element to it too. Like if it was clean and easy, then yeah, you just like, oh, well, I'm going to split up with her and wait, or they would have just been able to be together, and it's that part of their story where it's very muddy, and you kind of just have to get through the shit of it kind of to get to the good part. I will say that as soon as you never see Vivian anymore in the movie once him and they divorce, and it's like that's probably not accurate, because he had to interact her with to be with the kids and all of that. So it'd have been nice, at least in something, even if it was in the post credits where they talked about June and Johnny, there would have been something about Vivian. But since the movie was about June and Johnny, I guess it makes sense that it isn't.
We noticed that Vivian won't even humor the fact that Cash is like happy about being famous, and because she just wants a normal life. She's like, I want you, John. I want everything you promised me. And yeah, Johnny at that point, like you said, he was Johnny Cash, and like he was reaping the rewards of what he had accomplished. Being this unique singer. It's on more than one occasion, June pretty much quits. Following the tour because she's just tired of the hijinks of these guys. So that was pretty funny.
I mean, the only girl.
Yeah. And then I'm not sure what his name was, but he goes on a whole spiel about like, how he's a Christian and like what they're like singing about with like temptation and stuff. And he's like ranting on it. I think he's just kind of drunk and being stupid, but at the same time, I think, the movie definitely plays that card of where they're questioning their own morality in terms of the entertainment they're putting out there. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, 1,000%, and it's that because they have to tell him to like shut up, and then I think that was Jerry Lee Lewis. I think, but I could be wrong.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So, and then you end up I think in that same scene in the car, he's like, I'm falling in love with June, and he tries to get in the back seat with June, and they're like, chill the fuck out, bro. Mm-hmm. So
I loved all the very romantic close-up moments with like Johnny and June on stage. All those duets and stuff are just so awesome. And personal story, I produced this magazine show here in Charleston for a couple of years called Low Country Live, and we had some performers that would come up and they would promote like open mic night. And on a couple instances, him and one of his friends, they did these Johnny Cash and June duets, and they sounded awesome. And I had so much fun complimenting them afterwards. So, and I first heard all that in this movie. It wasn't from growing up with this music at all. So, have you ever heard the Johnny Cash song, A Boy Named Sue?
I have. I actually have it on a mix CD somewhere.
Okay.
So I have a mix CD it's half somebody and half Johnny Cash. So yeah. But it's I mean, the things that you can see on like when they're doing, they're singing Jackson and all these other songs, and like you can just the chemistry, their chemistry on stage, and you can tell that's where everything's born from, and that's where it started, and you can see all of that when they're performing, and it just takes them a long time to get the offstage part to catch up to that, and
Yeah.
different marriages and being addicted to pills and being a drunk, and she finds them, hey, you guys remember we have a matinee show at 2, and they're all fucking pissed drunk, and then she starts throwing the bottles at them and tell them they can't walk the line, and then, oh look, the song Walk the Line gets written.
Yeah.
So
I'll never forget that the scene with the groupie girl who's like bouncing back and forth in the front row or whatever, and he ends up hooking up with hers. She always sticks in my mind. They definitely made her look as attractive as they could possibly do. As they go into that whole montage of him cheating on his wife. Cash kind of looks like a silly lovesick puppy, like dope for a lot of the sections where he's not on stage, which kind of annoyed me. Like, I can see how the merit of that in terms of like he's just the same little boy that we see in the beginning of the movie, but at the same time it's like, dude, would you straighten up a little bit in these circumstances? Like I think the scene that bugs me most is whenever when he finally does get with June and he's like teasing her with the food or whatever. I don't know. It's not my thing.
Like that was, I mean, okay, so part of that scene is very cute, but then he never gives it to her because she's like, you're mean, and he's like, all right, whatever, and I think most of us have probably been in a similar situation where they're like, hey, give me and it's whatever M&Ms or something, and you don't share the first one, but then you do share it, or you could see yourself doing it at least. But I think the other thing that so it takes him forever to where she calls him a friend, even though they've hooked up and like I guess been together and then aren't together, because it's very off and on because of their situation. But he corners into singing her on the stage, but then you get a further into the movie, like actually the end of the movie, and he fucking corners her on stage with asking, he's like, I've asked you to marry me 40 different ways, and you've given me 40 different, you got to find a new way to say no, basically. And she doesn't. But it's like nowadays, like you ask a girl or anybody, and they tell you no, that's supposed to be the end all. That's the end of it. And to a degree, I understand that.
Good point.
But there's also I think there is some difference there, because obviously they love each other and are meant to be together, and she's all these things around are preventing that kind of thing. But now it's like this guy asked me out 40 times, they'd be like, oh, he's a stalker.
Yeah.
And most likely in most situations, yes, if you've told them no and they keep asking you out to that degree, they probably are. You might want to be a little concerned for your health. So I mean,
I was pretty prepared to complain about the romantic back and forth of them, but at the same time, that gives you like the ultimate payoff at the end of them actually, having that moment where he picks her up and gives her a kiss, and we know that they get married. So it's kind of in service to the movie, although a little dramatically frustrating for the audience, because it's one of my pet peeves, but maybe something I need to get around. Yeah, I think one of the cringiest moments probably is, we had mentioned it earlier, whenever he invites Vivian to the music awards and June shows up and he chases after her and pretty much humiliates his wife. Gosh, there's a lot of humiliation for Viv coming up. He subjects his wife and girls to watching them sing those love duets with June. Makes it clear that Vivian wants the kids nowhere near June because, I mean, she sees the threat coming.
And Johnny's like, what are you doing? And like, I think in that situation, it was supposed to be innocent. I think it was supposed to be, this is the person I'm singing with. This is also someone that I care about, is a good friend of mine. Even obviously it's more than that, but I think that it was meant to be innocent. But even at that, Vivian's just like, hell no. And June's like, no, I understand. And just, leaves. So, I mean, she knew, like, so
And that all reaches what a boiling point whenever he comes out on stage blasted from pills and ends up passing out, hits his little rock star rock bottom point as he needs to begin cleaning up, just like in Ray from a few years prior, where Jamie Foxx played Ray Charles, kind of his whole heroin experience. So pretty much same thing, just with pills here. So that's another kind of grievance, is these musical biopics kind of follow these structures. I mean, I don't know anything about like Cash's career to that extent. Everything I know about him is from the movie, but and it seems like there's this template. I mean, most rock stars probably go through these drug phases, but it's really focused on here, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I think it's because it was actually like, it was. I guess, I mean, especially having read, like, say, Motley's autobiography, and then they show all that in the movie. I mean, that's, what happened. So, I mean, I think it is that, one, it provides drama in the movie, but, if it's actually similar to what happened, then, I mean, I think that's what they're going here to show. So, I mean, it's pretty well documented that Johnny Cash, was a big boozer and pill guy. Like, in one of the things, in the movie there, they're at the end, they're like, oh, they live happily ever after for 35 years until they die. But, it never says, talks about how he never would stay clean for more than a few years at a time without relapsing. Because, I mean, at that point, you're addicted and all of that. So.
We finally do get the split whenever he comes home and he starts nailing up all these pictures of like June and his band and stuff, and Vivian wants no part of that. They get in a little bit of a verbal altercation, which ends up with them basically fighting on the floor, making it look like he's attacking her. I don't think it was quite that as severe as it would have ended up, but Vivian and the kids definitely headed out after that point, leaving Johnny to clean up at June's house not long after he gets busted, I think, for trying to smuggle. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, he had already been busted for that at that point. He got busted and then went home, and because she said something about him needing to clean up so he could, Vivian asked how June felt about her boy toy being busted or whatever, and she's like, oh, well, she went home in Vegas, which was right before he got busted, and that's where she goes, oh, well, it's no surprise. And then the fight happens, and I think it may have, it wasn't that terrible, but I mean, he still obviously was much bigger and much stronger than her and overpowered her, and definitely was like in a mounted style position, and it could have gotten really bad. Yeah. So obviously is very much a low point. He's busted, and because June threw away all of his drugs after he fainted on stage.
Yeah. And the film does a really good job at showing how men can be vulnerable too. I'm not sure if we acknowledge that enough in societal talk. Let's see here. It's pretty funny to see June's dad chasing off the drug dealer with the gun, making sure he got squared up. This is about the time
I don't think that was that was at his big house, because that was after
it was with when he is with like June's family.
Yeah, they all stay at that house, because remember his dad is talking shit to him about that tractor being stuck in the mud, and so he goes out there and everybody's leaving, and June's mom's like, you got to go down there, and she's like, but if I do, and she's like, no, you're already there, honey, and so she goes down there and helps him, and so that's when he recovers, and they got just like good old country folk, they got the two shotguns right at the dealer, like get the hell off our lawn kind of thing. So
yep. It's around that time where he starts reading all his prison fan mail, and it really dawns on him the fact that he needs to make this kind of comeback, where he's doing this live album at the prison, which the record executives are not crazy about, but he's the man in black, so he can do it. Shows his little
I like that he's to. I like that he was just like, I'm gonna be there and I'm gonna record an album on this date. You can do what you want with it.
Yeah.
And just does his own thing.
Shows how he kind of does that. Because, I mean, there are some famous Johnny Cash like posters where he's like flicking you off, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have the T-shirt I got it for Christmas of him shooting the bird. So
Yeah. So he kind of has this reputation of like fuck authority, and so they kind of
oh
make a point of doing that whenever he's making fun of the water at the prison, and he even gets one of the guys working there to admit that he would never drink it himself. What were you
yeah,
gonna say?
he's like I'm a Coke guy, and then yeah, he talks about how he's like I've never had to drink any of this yellow water, and this also harkens back to he tells him like I've never done hard time, but I've been busted, and you know
Yeah.
he asked Vivian when he came back home after he had been arrested what his dad said, and his dad said, well, now he won't have to work so hard to make people think he's been arrested, because that's
Right.
kind of part of his whole outlaw persona. Which I mean, I guess to be fair, he bucked normal tradition. He always wore black. He didn't do the normal hymnals that people were trying to do when he first broke in. And so he had always been this outlaw doing everything against society kind of thing.
I did skip the
And then he
note.
actually was.
I did skip the note about whenever his dad comes to visit his place. So yeah, he gets this nice place alongside of a lake, invites him over for some dinner, and yeah, his dad's still not having any of it. Like he can't be proud of his son at all. All he notices is his tractor's stuck in the mud or whatever, or on a hill, which drives Johnny nuts. So I just wanted to go back to that just because of the just reiterating how much how much the daddy problems kind of are essential to all this.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely had them daddy issues for sure.
All right. And so as the movie's wrapping up, we see, him and June singing up on stage, some very intimate moments with them. And finally, he basically, we get the raw moment where he asks her to marry him on the bus. And she's a little taken aback by that because it's nasty. But, Johnny's a real simple guy. He just wants to say what he wants to in the moment and go from there, but she's not having any of it. So it does get quite romantic whenever he corners her on stage and says all these wonderful things, which finally gets her to agree to marry him. And you get that nice shot of him picking her up on stage.
Yeah, which is usually the cover picture or like the really famous movie poster. So yeah.
And then it kind of
actually I was gonna say I was kind of surprised that wasn't the end. You get this one other scene you're about to talk about, but like it felt like that could have just been the end. I mean, it was only another couple minutes, which was a good, like, sweet thing. Besides, just them being married, it gave you just a little bit more. So I thought that was a good touch.
Yeah, kind of wrap things up with his father, where he's not quite as brash with the granddaughters. And then, there's a little family moment at the end to wrap things up. So, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I'm curious how the big fans of Johnny would react to this, especially since I find the Vivian stuff maybe a little bit too harsh. Let's see. Oh, this is miles better than Mangold's Identity. I still see that
Yes.
Hollywood biopic sheen here at times, and maybe a little bit of too much dramatic tension in terms of like communication errors and stuff, like stretching things out. But on a whole, it's a really, really enjoyable movie. I'm glad it taught me as much about Johnny Cash as I know. And yeah, I can't call it perfect, so I would just 4.5 for me. There's just a few things about it that bother me, but ultimately, as we discussed, they're probably justified.
I mean, Timothy Oliphant wasn't in that movie, so it's definitely not justified. But I'm gonna go with the big 5.
Yeah.
I had it as a 4 off of memory, but also I'm a sucker for a good love story, and somehow unintentionally we did these movies in February. Excuse me, with two different very views of love and all of that. So it worked itself out, I guess, even though it took us forever to get to these from the last episode.
All right. So what is our next movie, Joey?
So, you know how I do. I like to elude the quote towards tying into what I'm picking, or sometimes if I was what I'm picking or what category I'm giving. So, it was definitely tied into what I'm picking. So, I mean, I don't know. I want to see if you can even have any idea based off of the quote earlier.
So is this a Sean Connery? I mean, Sean Connery said that quote in the movie, right?
It was a Sean Connery who said that.
I mean, I think I've seen all the Nick Cage and Sean Connery in the collection, but I don't know. What are we watching next?
So I went through your little tag list, and there was a couple movies on there that kind of surprised me. The first one was 12 Angry Men that you did not have tagged, and that really surprised me, and that was going to be my pick. And then I just was casually looking through the Laserdisc collection, and you also had not watched the Sean Connery movie, which kind of ties in extra more into the quote, and that's From Russia with Love.
Oh, okay. Now I have seen that. It's been ages, like high school. So yeah, I'm all about checking a little Bond action out that ended up on crazy laser disc Criterion.
Yes, I have not seen any of like the really old Bond movies, but
Okay.
you the tie-in, the extra tie-in is that his character, Sean Connery's character in The Rock, is by a ton of fan theories with stuff to back it up, is that he is James Bond in that movie.
Oh.
And you know, so which makes sense. He was disavowed by his government. He has no real name, or they don't know his real name, and he has these things that are in, you know, there's the stuff that's in that thing. And there's like a whole bunch of like evidence to it that, you know, so obviously it's not real. That's not a real thing, but it's funny and cute. So
Cool. Yep. I have seen it, but we'll allow it because it's been forever and I have been meaning to get back to it. So, and I have seen 12 Angry Men, but that was like right when I became like aware of the collection. So I haven't actually letterboxed it. So just to clarify there. Okie doke.
okay,
How many
so
movies?
that makes a little more sense.
How many movies do you have
that makes
on
a little more
your Wheel of Destiny now?
Well, let's go find out, because I don't know.
I think I have 40.
So-
I have 44 now. I wonder. Just trying to make sure I don't change our roulette.
I
wheel
think that's
here.
right, because mine shows 43. So let me make sure. We just did Walk the Line. Well, no, I have not taken Walk the Line off, so I actually only have 42.
Okay, so let's see here. So then, does that mean I have one extra?
I believe you might not have taken one off, yeah.
Okay. How do I want to snip here? I'll do it afterwards. Whatever. Okay, so random number generator 1 through 44 gives me 30. Interesting number there. And 30 is. Ooh, Robot in Frank. Another movie I've wanted to watch for the longest time and just haven't dived into it. So,
Robot in Frank.
Robot in Frank from 2012.
And that's like FARANCK, like the name, or FARNK, or is like FRANC, like the denomination of
Frank,
franc?
Frank.
Okay. All right, and now I have a category to give you, right?
Yeah, sure.
Alrighty. So, like I told you off recording, that I had this moment where I freaked out because I was like, I don't have a category, and couldn't think of anything. And I remembered that I had thought of one during a bunch of those long drives that I had for a while there working. So, I want you to pick the movie that most personifies the 90s to you. And so I don't mean your favorite movie from the 90s or what you think is critically the best movie from the 90s. I want you to think like the movie where you watch it and you're like, oh my God, this is the 90s.
Okay.
So
Prototypical
whatever
90s flick.
Yep, whatever personifies the 90s. And to see, and it'll be interesting to see if you come up with any of the movies that I like named off the top of my head to me that would stand out as top picks. So we'll see.
Clueless is up there, but I guess I watched that last year, so I'll do a little digging, see what I end up with.
That was one of the ones that both me and Carl came up with instantly. Was like Clueless, the big one, but there are a couple other ones that we talked about, so it'd be interesting to see if that pops up for you.
And there's different, stages of the 90s. I mean, in a way, Matrix is very 90s, but late so. Yeah, I'll have to do a little brainstorming on that. And if you'd like us to answer a question on the show, just send us an email to theaveragejoesmovieclubcast@gmail.com. We need to check our inbox. Hopefully no one's waiting for us to find their emails. But yeah, it's been fun talking again.
It has been fun, but if you don't want to email us, if you'd like to do things a little more in the 2020s, you can actually go find us on Twitter now.
Tweet us
at the AJMCC, and we will respond. Hopefully, we're going to start being a little more active on there. We just kind of started it, and but yeah, come and check us out on there or send us that email. We would love to hear from you. Even if it's not the nicest things in the world. I mean, damn, Justin, how
trolls every now and then, so why not be our troll?
Yeah, how could you? How dare you compare a movie to another movie? Like, that was so terrible of you. Can't believe you did that in your Letterboxd review. But anyway, so Justin, why do we do this show?
Because we love talking about movies.
Night, everybody.
Night. See you next time.